check on the bar was for $1 million. The ink was still fresh. The man who wrote it was a billionaire. He was young, handsome, and powerful. He thought every woman had a price. He thought he had just bought her. But the woman didn't pick up the check. She didn't even look at the zeros. She looked him right in the eyes. She told him he couldn't afford her time. Then, she turned her back and walked away. The entire bar went silent. No one says no to a man like that. Not in this city. But from the shadows in the corner, a different kind of man was watching. He didn't have a checkbook out. He didn't need one. He was the man who truly owned the streets. He watched her walk away with a look of pure respect. He stood up and followed her. He didn't offer her money. He just looked at her and said 2 words. Smart girl. Stay with us. You are about to hear a story of power, pride, and the one thing that money simply cannot buy. This is a tale that will stay with you long after it ends. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more stories like this to you. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? We love hearing from our viewers all around the world. Now, let's see what happened next. The Blue Moon was the kind of place where secrets were kept in the ice cubes. It was dim. It was expensive. The air smelled like aged bourbon and expensive perfume. Isabella sat at the far end of the bar. She wasn't looking for trouble. She wasn't looking for a hero. She just wanted a quiet drink after a long shift at the hospital. Isabella was a nurse. She saw the world at its worst. She saw the rich and the poor. In the ER, everyone bled the same color. It gave her a perspective most people lacked. She knew what mattered, and she knew what was fake. Then the doors opened. The energy in the room shifted. It was like a cold breeze had walked in. Julian Vane entered. He was young. He was handsome in a polished, plastic way. He was the son of a tech giant. He had never worked a day in his life. He walked like he owned the floor tiles. He had 2 bodyguards behind him. They weren't there for safety. They were there for show. Julian scanned the room. His eyes landed on Isabella. She was wearing a simple black dress. Her hair was pulled back. She wasn't trying to stand out. And that is exactly why she did. He walked over. He didn't ask if the seat was taken. He just sat down. You look lonely, Julian said. His voice was smooth. It was the voice of a man used to getting his way. Isabella didn't turn her head. I'm not lonely. I'm peaceful. There's a difference. Julian laughed. It was a loud, sharp sound. Peace is boring. Peace is for people who can't afford excitement. He signaled the bartender. The best bottle you have. Put on my tab. The bartender moved fast. Everyone moved fast for Julian. Isabella just sipped her water. She didn't look impressed. This bothered him. Julian was used to being the sun. He expected everyone to rotate around him. Do you know who I am? He asked. It was the classic question. The question of a man with no real identity. I know you're interrupting my quiet time, Isabella replied. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were calm. They were steady. Julian reached into his pocket. He pulled out a checkbook. He pulled out a gold pen. He scribbled something quickly. He ripped the paper off. He slid it toward her. That is $1 million, Julian whispered. That is for one night of your company. No strings. Just dinner. Just conversation. Just to say I won. Isabella looked at the check. The ink was still wet. It was more money than she would make in 20 years of nursing. It could pay off her mother's medical bills. It could buy a new life. The entire bar was watching. People held their breath. They expected her to scream. They expected her to grab it. Isabella reached out. Her fingers touched the edge of the paper. Julian grinned. He adjusted his tie. He thought he had her. Then, Isabella did something no one expected. She pushed the check back. She didn't tear it. She didn't throw it. She just pushed it back into his space. My mother taught me something, Isabella said. Her voice was soft but clear. She said if something has a price tag, it's not a prize. It's a commodity. I am not a commodity, Mr. Vane. Keep your money. You're going to need it when you realize you're actually quite boring. Julian's face went red, not from embarrassment, from rage. His ego was a fragile thing, and she had just shattered it. Do you have any idea what I could do to you? Julian hissed. He leaned in close. His bodyguard stepped forward. I could buy this bar and have you thrown out. I can make sure you never work in this city again. Isabella didn't flinch. You could, but you'd still be the man who had to pay $1 million just to get a woman to look at him. And even then, she said no. Julian raised his hand. He was losing control. The room went cold, but before he could speak, a hand landed on Julian's shoulder. It wasn't a heavy hand, but Julian froze. He looked up. His face went from red to white in a second. Standing there was a man in a charcoal suit. He didn't have bodyguards. He didn't need them. His name was Dante Moretti. In this city, Julian Vane had money, but Dante Moretti had power. Dante was older. He had silver at his temples. His face looked like it was carved from granite. He was the kind of man people whispered about, the kind of man who handled problems that the police couldn't touch. Julian, Dante said. His voice was a deep growl. You're making a scene. It's tacky. Dante, Julian stammered. She insulted me. I was just. You were overpaying for something you don't understand. Dante interrupted. He looked at the check on the bar. He picked it up. He looked at the amount. He let out a small, dry chuckle. Then Dante tore the check into 4 pieces. He let them fall like snow onto Julian's lap. Go home, Julian, Dante said. The grown-ups are talking. Julian didn't argue. He didn't talk back. He stood up. He signaled his guards. He slunk out of the bar like a kicked dog. The room stayed quiet. Dante didn't sit in Julian's seat. He stood a respectful distance away. He looked at Isabella. He saw the way her hands were steady. He saw that she wasn't shaking. Smart girl, Dante said. Isabella looked at him. She knew who he was. Everyone knew the name Moretti. Are you going to offer me a check too? Dante smiled. It wasn't a plastic smile. It was real. I don't buy things that aren't for sale. It's a waste of time. I'm Dante. Isabella, she replied. Isabella, he repeated. He liked the sound of it. Can I buy you a drink that doesn't come with contract? I'm fine with my water, she said. Even better, Dante said. A woman who knows when she's had enough. That's rare in this zip code. He leaned against the bar. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't talk about his cars or his business. He talked about the music playing in the background. He talked about the way the city looked at 3 in the morning. For the first time all night, Isabella felt herself relax. There was an edge to Dante. He was dangerous. She knew that. But he was also honest. He wasn't wearing a mask. They talked for an hour. It felt like 10 minutes. Dante listened. He actually listened. When she talked about her work at the hospital, he didn't look bored. He looked intrigued. You save lives, Dante said. I usually do the opposite. We're an odd pair. I don't think we're a pair at all, Isabella challenged. Dante laughed. Smart girl. Again, he stood up. He reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out a checkbook. He pulled out a small, plain business card. It only had a phone number on it. No name. No title. If Julian Vane tries to make good on his threats, Dante said, or if you just want a conversation that doesn't involve a bank account, call me. He walked away. He didn't look back. He vanished into the night. Isabella sat there for a long time. She looked at the torn pieces of the $1 million check on the floor. Then she looked at the small white card in her hand. She knew her life had just changed. She just didn't know if it was for better or for worse. The next few days were strange. Isabella went back to the hospital. She worked her double shifts. She stayed busy, but she felt eyes on her. It started with small things. A black SUV parked across from her apartment. A man in a suit standing at the end of the hospital hallway. He wasn't a patient. He wasn't a visitor. He was a sentinel. Then the phone call started. Not from Dante. From her boss. Isabella, the chief of medicine said. He looked nervous. He wouldn't meet her eyes. There have been some complaints. About your conduct. Conduct? Isabella asked. I haven't had a single patient complain in 5 years. It's from higher up, he sighed. The board of directors. A major donor is unhappy. They're suggesting we suspend you. Isabella felt a cold weight in her stomach. Julian Vane. He was a man of his word. He was trying to break her. He wanted her to crawl back. He wanted her to realize that without his mercy, she was nothing. She walked out of the office. She didn't cry. She was too angry to cry. She sat in her car in the parking lot. She looked at her phone. She thought about the $1,000,000. She could have had that money. She could have avoided all of this. Then she remembered Dante's voice. Smart girl. She pulled a small white card from her purse. She dialed the number. It picked up on the first ring. No one said hello. They just waited. It's Isabella, she said. I know. Dante's voice came through. He sounded like he was smiling. I've been waiting for the call. Julian is being a child, isn't he? He's trying to take my job, Isabella said. I don't want a handout, Dante. I just want him to stop. I don't give handouts, Dante replied, but I do enjoy correcting people's mistakes. Where are you? The hospital parking lot. Stay there. 5 minutes. Exactly 5 minutes later, a silver car pulled up. Dante was in the back seat. He rolled down the window. Get in. Isabella hesitated. She was a nurse. She was a good person. This man was a ghost in the underworld. But she realized something. In a world of sharks like Julian Vane, sometimes you need a leviathan to protect you. She got in the car. They drove to a building downtown. It wasn't a dark warehouse. It was a high-rise, the penthouse. Dante sat behind a large oak desk. He looked at Isabella. Julian thinks money is a weapon. He thinks he can use it to reshape reality. He needs to be reminded that some things are permanent. What are you going to do? Isabella asked. I'm going to invite him to dinner, Dante said, and you're going to be my guest. The dinner was held at the most exclusive club in the city. Julian Vane was there. He was surrounded by friends. He was bragging. He was telling the story of the bar girl who thought she was too good for him. She'll be calling me by Friday. Julian laughed. She'll be begging for a check half that size. Then the room went quiet. Dante Moretti walked in. Isabella was on his arm. She wasn't wearing a simple black dress this time. She was wearing a gown that looked like liquid midnight. She looked stunning. She looked powerful. Julian's drink nearly slipped from his hand. His friends stopped laughing. Dante walked straight to Julian's table. He didn't wait for an invitation. He pulled out a chair for Isabella. Then he sat down. Julian, Dante said, we were just talking about you. Julian tried to find his courage. Dante, this is a private table. Nothing is private for me, Julian, Dante said softly. I heard you were having some trouble with your investments. Julian frowned. My investments are fine. Are they? Dante leaned forward. Because I just bought the majority share of your father's holding company. I'm the chairman now, which means I'm the one who signs your allowance. The color drained from Julian's face. His friend slowly started to back away from the table. And, Dante continued, I noticed you've been spending time bothering the medical staff at the city hospital. That's a bad look for the company. It's a liability. So I've made a decision. Julian was shaking now. What decision? You're going on a trip, Dante said. A long one. My associates have a project in a very remote part of the world. No internet, no clubs, no checks. You're going to learn what it's like to work for a living. You can't do that, Julian shouted. Dante's eyes went cold. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I just did. Your guards have already been paid to leave. Your car is waiting outside. If you're not in it in 2 minutes, we stop being polite. Julian looked around. He looked for help. He saw none. He looked at Isabella. She didn't look triumphant. She didn't look smug. She just looked at him with pity. You should have just let me have my drink, Julian, she said. Julian stood up. He stumbled. He looked like a small, broken boy. He walked out of the club. He didn't have his pride. He didn't have his power. He had nothing. Dante turned to Isabella. The ice in his eyes melted. Better. He's gone, she asked. He's gone. Dante confirmed. He won't bother you again. Your job is safe. I spoke to the board. They realized they had made a clerical error. Isabella took a deep breath. She felt the weight lift off her shoulders. But she knew there was a new weight. Why did you do this, Dante? She asked. You don't do anything for free. Dante stood up. He walked her toward the balcony. The city lights stretched out below them. They looked like fallen stars. You're right. Dante said. I don't. I did it because I wanted to see if you were real. And you are, he said. Everyone has a price, Isabella. I've spent my life buying people. Judges, cops, politicians. I thought the whole world was a store. But you didn't even look at the check. He turned to her. The world is full of people who want to be something. But you already are something. You're someone who can't be bought. In my world, that's more valuable than gold. Isabella looked at the man beside her. He was a criminal. He was a king. He was a shadow. But he had protected her when no one else would. I still won't be bought, Dante, she warned him. Dante laughed. It was a warm, deep sound. I know. That's why I'm still standing here. I'm not trying to buy you, Isabella. I'm trying to earn you. The months that followed were unlike anything Isabella had ever known. She didn't quit her job. She didn't move into a mansion. She stayed the same Isabella. But the world around her changed. Dante didn't show up with diamonds. He showed up with coffee at the end of her night shifts. He didn't send flowers. He sent a driver to make sure she got home safe when it was raining. He was a man of two worlds. In one, he was the lion. He was the boss. He made decisions that moved millions of dollars and changed the fate of the city. In the other world, her world, he was just Dante. He was the man who liked old jazz records. He was the man who knew how to cook a perfect steak. He was the man who listened to her stories about the hospital. But you can't live in two worlds forever. Eventually, they collide. It happened on a Tuesday. Isabella was walking to her car after work. It was late. The parking lot was mostly empty. Suddenly, a car sped toward her. It screeched to a halt. 4 men jumped out. They weren't Julian's men. These men were different. They were rough. They looked like they had been in wars. Isabella, one of them asked. Who are you? She replied. She reached for her phone. A hand grabbed her wrist. You're coming with us. Morty took something from us. Now we're taking something from him. Isabella didn't scream. She didn't panic. Her heart was racing, but her mind was clear. She was a nurse. She knew how to stay calm in a crisis. He won't give you what you want, Isabella said. If you hurt me, he will burn everything you love. You know that. The man hesitated. He knew she was right, but greed is a powerful thing. We'll take our chances. They pushed her into the back of the car. They drove for a long time. They took her to a warehouse by the docks. It was cold. It smelled of salt and rust. They tied her to a chair. They didn't hit her. They were too afraid of Dante for that. They just waited. One of the men made a call. We have her, Moretti. The South Pier. 1 hour. Bring the ledger. Alone. Or she doesn't go home. Isabella sat in the dark. She thought about her life. She thought about the bar. She thought about the $1 million. She realized she didn't regret anything. She had lived her life with her head held high. Then, the doors of the warehouse blew open. It wasn't a slow entrance. It was an explosion. Dante Moretti didn't come alone. He came like a storm. The men in the warehouse scrambled for their guns, but they were too slow. Dante's men were everywhere. It was over in seconds. The kidnappers were on the ground. They were disarmed. They were terrified. Dante walked through the smoke. He didn't look at the gunmen. He didn't look at his men. He only looked at Isabella. He walked over to her. He pulled a knife from his pocket. He cut the ropes. He did it with surgical precision. He helped her stand up. His hands were shaking. Just a little. It was the first time she had ever seen him show fear. Are you hurt? He whispered. I'm fine, she said. She looked at him. You brought the ledger? Dante looked at the men on the floor. I brought death. They just haven't realized it yet. No, Isabella said. She took his hand. Don't do it, Dante. Not for me. If you do this, you're the man they think you are. Be the man I know. Dante looked at her. He looked at the men who had threatened her life. He wanted to end them. He wanted to show the world what happens when you touch what is his. But then he saw the look in Isabella's eyes. It was the same look she had when she rejected Julian Vane. It was a look of pure, unshakable integrity. Dante turned to his second in command. Take them away. Hand them over to the police. Give them the evidence on the smuggling ring. Let the law handle them. The men were shocked. His own team was shocked. Dante Moretti didn't call the police. He was the police's worst nightmare. Go, Dante barked. The warehouse cleared out. It was just the two of them. You let them go, Isabella said. I didn't let them go, Dante replied. They're going to prison for 20 years, but I did it your way. He looked at her. He looked tired. I told you I was trying to earn you, Isabella. Every day I spend with you, I realize how much work I have to do. Isabella smiled. She reached up and touched his face. You're doing okay, Dante. For mafia boss. Smart girl, he whispered. Life didn't become a fairy tale. Dante was still who he was. Isabella was still a nurse. The world was still a dangerous place. But something had changed. A year later, they were back at the Blue Moon. They sat at the same spot at the bar. The bartender brought them their drinks without asking. Water for her, bourbon for him. A young man walked in. He was wearing a suit that cost more than it should. He was loud. He was arrogant. He saw a girl sitting alone at a table. He walked over. He pulled out a wad of cash. Isabella watched from the bar. She saw the girl's face. She saw the hesitation. Isabella stood up. She walked over to the table. Dante stayed at the bar, watching with a small smile. Isabella looked at the young man. Put the money away, she said. The man looked up. Who are you? I'm someone who's been where she is, Isabella said. She looked at the girl. Don't take it. If you take his money, you give him the right to tell you who you are, and you're worth more than he can count. The girl looked at Isabella. She saw the strength in her eyes. She saw the way she carried herself. She looked at the man and shook her head. Get lost. The man huffed. He grumbled. He walked away. Isabella walked back to the bar. She sat down next to Dante. You're a bad influence on my business model. Dante joked. I'm a great influence on the world, Isabella replied. Dante leaned in. He kissed her forehead. Yes, you are. In a city built on greed, in a world where everything has a price, they had found the one thing that was free: respect, loyalty, and a love that didn't need a checkbook. Dante looked at the door. He saw the city lights glowing outside. He had everything he ever wanted. He had power. He had wealth. But as he looked at the woman beside him, he knew he had finally found his greatest treasure. She wasn't his possession. She wasn't his trophy. She was his equal. And as he took a sip of his bourbon, he leaned over and whispered it one more time, the words that had started it all. Smart girl. Thank you for listening to this story. It's a reminder that no matter how much money someone has, they can never buy your dignity. Your worth is determined by you, and you alone. If you enjoyed this tale, please give the video a like. It helps us more than you know. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We have many more stories of courage, love, and justice coming your way. Don't forget to check out the other stories on our channel. There's always something new to discover. Until next time, stay strong, stay proud, and remember, your integrity is your greatest power. Have a wonderful day, wherever you are in the world.